Modern street art. When most people think about modern street art, they think about murals or big paintings on a public space. However, this was not always the case. In this project, we will look at the early forms of street art, show how it evolved. The roots of modern street art can be traced back to the early 1920s. This form of street art, it was known as graffiti, and graffiti is defined as writing or drawings scribbled or sprayed in a public place. It wasn't until the early 1960s, however, that graffiti became popular again. The sudden change was due to political activists as well as gang members utilizing graffiti to get their message across. During the 1960s, street art was found all over Philadelphia and later moved to New York City during the 1970s. The main media used were spray paints, and because of the small size of spray paints, it was easier to carry around and easier to get in the harder to reach areas. Since tagging on public property is illegal, it added a sort of adrenaline rush to not get caught. The more popular spots that were tagged were trains or large walls, and the harder to reach areas were the ones that are more respected. And what attracted many people to street art was the bubbly font, the creativeness, rebelliousness, and the meaning behind each art.
All right, I'm going to talk about street art components versus opponents. Start off with component. Street art is relatively a new art form, so it takes time for society to get accustomed to it. They're very small to very large street art all around us. It's rapidly growing in pop culture. You walk the streets, you'll see paintings on bridges, trains, buildings, stickers plastered all over. Since street art is relatively new, people do work on public grounds, then which kind of bleeds into private property sometimes. That's where they get in trouble with lawsuits. Street artists will bring up the First Amendment to their own defense, and how it's an artistic expression. And they're adamant that street art does not mean vandalism. They don't go hand in hand. You could do street art without vandalizing property. So opponent street art has a negative connotation. It is associated with bad people breaking the law, and law enforcement has been trying to stop street art for decades on private and public property. Many city officials and residents consider it vandalism. Cities today continue to impose harsh punishment. For example, New York prohibits sales of spray paint, broad tips, markers, and other tools most street artists commonly use today. Very well, here in California, graffiti that causes damage up to $400, and property damage can carry penalties of 6 months in jail and $1,000 fine. An example of a lawsuit is Greg Mike and Alex Brewer. They are street artists, very well known. They got sued for $1 million in property damage by Dave McDonald. Dave said that his historic building was vandalized by them. Alex and Greg said the only reason they're getting lawsuit because they're well known. And they're kind of blaming this little amateur who's trying to live up to his reputation. Okay, and right. We'll talk about Greg Mike. Greg Mike, he's an American artist who is well known for his mural paintings and Larry Loudmouth icon, which you can see in the image below at the bottom of the screen. This character is in all of his paintings, basically his signature, so it's kind of like Fine Waldo whenever you look at his paintings. Greg loves to infuse cartoons with abstract lines and forms, and sometimes he'll add animals, which you'll see in the upcoming slide. His studios can be viewed in galleries and museums from Atlanta, Paris, Shanghai, New York to LA, and many more places. Here's Greg Mike's Right Under a Bridge acrylic painting in Atlanta, fusion of cartoon, abstract, and pop culture with the Tom and Jerry. And here you have a 2016 mural in Eastern Market, Detroit, fusion of abstract, cartoon, and then a lion that dominates most of the painting. You can see Larry
Taki 183 by Chantz Vanichaka for Art 312. So, history of Taki is he was born in 1953. He was popular in late 1960s to early 1970s. His given name is Demetrius, but he actually never revealed his full name. But his Demetrius, his name that his mother and everyone called him. He was inspired by Julio 204. His purpose, he just wanted to spread his artwork in subway in New York City. Just wherever he goes, he just write his name on there. But at the same time, he didn't want to reveal his identity. He wanted to get his artwork out there and just exposed to as many people as possible. His opinion on graffiti. Many people consider him as father of graffiti, but he doesn't think that he is, but he also appreciates that they consider him that. He hopes that newer artists to have protections over their right to make artwork or graffiti. He thinks that, he knows that graffiti is still legal, but he hopes that in the future there will be some laws to protect the graffiti or graffiti artists. He also thinks that to do it secretly without having to expose their identity, you don't have to do that. That's the way you think. And his opinion on modern graffiti artists or just modern graffiti artworks, he doesn't think that they are graffiti anymore. Modern artists often do it to become famous or to become cool in a sense. He also thinks that graffiti or street art is to do it anonymously. Like, you don't need to show your identity or reveal anything at all, or you don't want to become too famous in a sense. That's the way he thinks. So he doesn't think that modern graffiti is graffiti anymore. So him now, he finally revealed his identity after meeting many people and fans. They all just started to know his face, and he just gave up on hiding his face. He owns an auto shop, and he said once he turned away from graffiti, he will never go back. He just loses passion or anything about graffiti. Thank you.
While the 1920s and 1930s demonstrated increasing popularity of street graffiti through the New York and Los Angeles gangs, graffiti made an appearance on a different platform, military art, in the 1940s. About 2 decades later, American soldiers didn't really adapt the graffiti custom, but during World War II, they supported a piece that became well known to the world during those times. This piece was called Kilroy Was Here. Kilroy is a drawing of a guy peering over a wall with only his eyes showing, along with a large stretched oval nose hanging over the wall. The words Kilroy Was Here were marked next to the drawing. It is not a very complex drawing. It actually resembles more of a stick figure, with simple lines. U.S. soldiers drew this picture everywhere they went, on barracks, walls, equipment, and trenches, just to throw in a little humor during dark times. This drawing was inspired by an inspector named James Kilroy, who worked at the Bethlehem Steel Company in Quincy during December 1941. To show that he checked off duties off of his list, he marked Kilroy Was Here on most of the equipment. To his surprise, he found this etching almost everywhere the days afterwards, and it became popular across the globe, since the U.S. soldiers would draw this figure everywhere they went. This drawing didn't really live long in notoriety for long, but it did cause a lot of confusion and speculation, as most of art does in the beginning, because no one really knew where it came from at first, until Kilroy stepped up and claimed his story. While this popularity was short-lived, the Kilroy piece was still considered graffiti because of its simple styling, and it captured the attention of many people worldwide.